Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin.
And we have a guest today, Mike ter Maat. He is a candidate vying for the Libertarian Party nomination for president. Mike,
Crazy.
welcome.
That's crazy.
Thank you very much. It's great to be with you guys. Thanks for letting me join you in WYSL territory and in Rochester.
Absolutely.
I was just up there for a few days in Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, Poughkeepsie, and back to my home in Virginia.
Right on. It's a beautiful area. Hope you got to experience a bit of it. Were you up for the Libertarian convention?
I was some weeks ago, but this time was collecting signatures for the petition drive to secure our ballot access. It's the hot button issue these days. As you probably well know, the Libertarian Party has secured ballot access, or is about to, in 48 states, and we're still working on it in Illinois and New York. New York is going to be the hard one. So anyone out there that wants to pitch in, it's very important. Even if you're not a Libertarian, even if you don't live in New York, it's an important issue, because if you believe in choice, if you believe in democracy, you got to believe in helping people get on the ballot.
100%. And it's going to take a lot of work in New York State. 45,000 valid signatures. It's going to be an effort. So thank you for coming up and
a huge effort.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We had lots of volunteers out there, people from my team, people from other teams. We had a good time. We got a lot of work done, hundreds of signatures collected. So it's worth the effort, but we got a long ways to go and not a lot of time to get it done.
Right on. Well, I want to spend this whole time talking about like the politics in New York State and signature gathering. Like Tim and I have gone to the weeds on that enough times. Let's just start out with tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and why you wanted to run for president.
Sure. Look, I grew up a professional economist. I was in banking for a while when I got out of business school. By the way, I went to engineering school and business school in upstate New York. I was in Troy for 5 years. I lived in Albany for a couple years later on after that. And I grew up as a bit of a Republican. I was in commercial finance. I was fiscal conservative. Later on, I went to graduate school again in economics at the George Washington University. I worked as a professional economist for a long time. Worked for the White House for a couple of years. Worked as a professional advocate for free markets in Washington for almost a decade. Had my own business for almost a decade. A buddy of mine and I launched a business in strategic consulting and in executive education. I've taught economics at 3 different universities. And as a second career in public service, I became a police officer as something that I had always wanted to do. I went to the police academy at the age of 49. I was on the road for 11 and a half years in Florida from the age of 49 to 60, all as a registered Libertarian, by the way.
So look, I want to jump in on this one, Mike. Libertarians and police officers, sometimes it feels like oil and vinegar. Okay, like Kevin and I are like pragmatic. We try to build bridges between these ideas and these concepts, and we get libertarians that are just like, screw the cops. We hate them. Blah 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 blah. I want to hear your take on this. How are you gonna bring everyone together?
First of all, I don't think it's statistically speaking, it's not true that most libertarians don't like cops, just as a practical matter. I know that some don't.
We have a reputation.
Fair enough.
That may be. I'm just pointing out that you don't want to mischaracterize your audience. Done right, police work is the most libertarian thing you can do. Police work is all about public service. It's all about protecting life and liberty, protecting your civil liberties from the state. And of course, it has to be said that done wrong, there's nothing less libertarian, right?
Fair
and
enough,
so police officers have to learn the easy way or the hard way, but police officers learn that they are the first and sometimes last offense of the Constitution. If you don't take the Constitution seriously, sometimes there's no one else out there who will. So in my view, that's the big difference between good police work and bad police work, is the extent to which you take the Bill of Rights seriously, not just the Constitution generally, but in particular, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, that you're out there protecting people's civil liberties. That's what it's all about, done right. So, I had a great experience. I was able to find an agency that had a separate vice unit, so I didn't have to get involved with all the bullshit that, I personally feel is stupid. The war on drugs, and we had a separate traffic unit, so I didn't have to get involved with all the ticketing to meet revenue quotas for the town and stuff like that, and prostitution stings, and all the stupid stuff that we as libertarians find so revolting. I didn't have to get involved with. Mine was just bread and butter on the road, responding to calls, taking care of criminal elements, and providing service the best I could. So I had a very rewarding experience.
Right on. Okay, so you see law enforcement as it, when done right, the law enforcement should be protecting all of the law. And ultimately, the law of the land is the Constitution, right? If we're saying that, it's
absolutely
again, the Fourth Amendment, First Amendment, and then also protecting property. And and I like that libertarian saying.
I think that we all agree on that.
Yeah,
I don't think that's just me. I think that we all agree that that's the job of a police officer. We're just pissed off when officers do it wrong.
Right.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like that's and I agree. Again, like sometimes people like to characterize us as like anti-police when we criticize police, because sometimes police officers abuse their power and they hurt people, right? They're not just out there making sure that people aren't getting hurt, people aren't having their stuff taken away, that there's some like justice and recompense for when someone is injured, right? That's what police and the criminal justice system as a whole should be protecting. But so you're out there doing that work. Didn't have to get in some of those gray areas of the war on drugs and some other maybe victimless crimes that.
I wouldn't call it gray area. I would call it a black area. It's just places where the state shouldn't be. Right. So that's my view. And I think most police officers would agree with me. Not all, but I would say. I don't have statistics on this, so I'm a little bit out on a peninsula without a way to back this up, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think that most police officers would tell you that the war on drugs doesn't work as a practical matter. I don't know that most police officers would agree with me that as an ethical matter, the state has no business, right, telling you what you can or cannot do with your body. I don't know how many police officers would agree with that. That's something I don't have statistics on. But I would suggest that police, by and large, would agree that as a practical matter, it just doesn't work. It doesn't keep people safe. It doesn't keep people from addiction. It creates, black markets, and black markets are dangerous and they kill people. And, I've got the CPR experience to back that up. I have performed a lot of CPR in young men dying from addiction problems. And that's the result of black markets. That's not just the result of drugs per se.
Right. And so we'll kind of dive into the issues a bit on this. We already have, but like there's a lot of police officers who feel like they don't really have a choice, right? Like they have to enforce the law as it is. So like they have to kind of jump in and do this stuff. So like
Sure.
how do police officers and society as a whole deal with that? And then B, like let's start jumping into what are some of the solutions at the federal level to maybe like roll some of this stuff back. So let's start with the first one though.
Well, I think everyone has got to protest. I mean, you don't have to be a police officer to raise awareness of the fact that the war on drugs doesn't work. I think most Americans would agree with that. And I think that we should be bringing it to the attention of the people who can do something about it. Our legislators need to be reminded that Americans have a problem with these programs that don't work. Americans don't like our young people dying from addiction, dying from overdoses, dying from situations that are fostered by black markets. We need a new approach as a practical matter. Even if you don't agree with me as an ethical proposition, that the government really has no business telling us what we can or cannot do. Even if you don't agree with me ethically, you've got to agree that as a practical matter, this is a failed effort. And we need to try something different. We're losing over 100,000 young people, mostly, every year to overdose deaths. We need to try something different. And I think that most Americans would agree with that proposition. And whether you're a cop or not, I call on police officers especially to raise awareness of it, because as cops, we know that it doesn't work, right? Cops are the ones out there seeing the fact that this isn't going away, that black markets in many places are growing, not shrinking. Cops are the ones that are doing the the CPR, the first response. We get that this is just a program that doesn't work. And so, yeah, cops do have to raise awareness of it, but I would suggest that we all do, and not just libertarians, right?
Right.
So
everyone who's seeing the consequences of these failed policies owes it. It's a responsibility as a citizen to raise awareness about it and to try to change
I think that that's well said. And, you know, everyone is touched by it. Everyone knows someone who has lost someone, right? And so we need to speak up and take this seriously. After all, we are standing up for ourselves and for each other. This isn't merely, you know, screw the state. Mm-hmm. There is an element of that, and that's important. And, you know, I love that, right? But there is something more fundamental even than that. These are our people. These are our young people. This is our culture. This is our society. These are our sons and daughters. People, what are we doing? If we're not standing up for these people, what are we doing with our own lives? Like, what is so much more important about what we're doing than standing up for our young people in the face of a program that makes it worse instead of better?
Okay, let me jump in again. Like, I want to hear your most practical solution to these things right now. Like, my life recently was touched 2 times in orbit, like distant orbit, but by young men falling apart and dying from being addicted to drugs. And they both had help in the past. They both had trouble in the past. And those 2 things combined left them hopeless. So what do we got that's practical here, Mike? What do we got?
The biggest thing that we need to do is to allow people, when they are acquiring these drugs, right? If people are going to acquire these drugs, we need to allow them to do it from someone with whom they can develop a relationship, someone whom they can trust. The reason people are dying is typically, not in every case, but typically the reason people are dying is because they don't know what the dosage is that they're taking. In many cases, they don't even know what's in the product that they're using, particularly with fentanyl. The reason there are so many deaths related to fentanyl is because fentanyl is so powerful that it is a cheap substitute for other narcotics, and it's used in lots of different products. And if you get the dosing wrong, it's really a problem because it is so strong. So you need to be able to acquire this from someone who knows what they're doing. And almost definitionally, that's not going to happen in a black market. So the most important thing that you can do is get the government the hell out of it. That is by far the most important thing that you can do.
Right on.
I like it. Yeah, no, look, black markets are protected by violence. Black markets are protected by deliberately overdosing a kid that looks like a problem, right? They're going to get rid of him by doing him a favor. Like, there's an epic amount of danger to a black market that people don't understand. We talk about it every day, that these people still have meaning. They still have like value. And when we step away from that reality, when we distance ourselves from being able to feel stuff like that, that's where we don't get solutions. We get authoritarianism. And
I agree. That's well said. And that brings up another element of this, in my view, that all too often citizens and especially politicians feel like they've done something about it by criminalizing it, right?
Sure.
If you vote to criminalize something you don't like, it makes you feel like you've done something. Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is, number one, you haven't. And number two, you've actually made it worse. But it is a lot of, authoritarianism is exactly the right word. It's exactly the right word. That's what this is all about, is politicians imposing their opinions on a lot of other people just to leverage their constituents' fear, leveraging their constituents wanting to do something and not knowing what to do about it. So their politicians sell them this load of crap about, well, we're fighting drugs by criminalizing it. I'm sorry, no, you're not. That's just, I've got a hammer in my toolbox. Everything looks like a nail. And so you go around slapping everything because criminalization is the one thing that you feel like you can do about it. I'm sorry. Put the hammer back in the box and let us get on with our lives.
Yeah. No, it's I do love that you said that, because I think there's so much bad policy that comes from politicians wanting to look like they did something, right? Politicians want to like, look, no, see, I took action on this. Like, isn't that enough? No, if the action ends up being more destructive than the status quo, then no, that's not enough.
Right.
It's bad. We need to do better.
Not all of our problems are public policy problems. You know, drug use, drug abuse is a medical problem, particularly when it turns into addiction. It can be a culture problem. It can be a societal problem. It can be a mental health problem. It can be psychological. There are many attenuated and adjacent problems to drug use. But that none of that implies it's a public policy issue. None of that implies we need the force of the state to try to help us out with this.
Or the way they're applying the force at the very least, right? Less
said.
Force might be better in this situation.
Absolutely.
Right.
And like I say, just as a practical matter, you know, even if philosophy aside, even if you didn't agree with us on the principles, on the ethics, even if you had a completely different philosophy, I mean, my goodness, this is a practical matter. Just as an empirical matter, look at the data. What we're doing doesn't work. Please let us try something else.
Look at the results. Well, I want to spend our entire segment talking about this. I want to give you the opportunity to talk about a couple other issues too. So if you had to pick two other issues that are really important that you want the WYSL audience to know about, what issues would be and why?
We need a completely different foreign policy. We need to stop taking money from fellow Americans and using it to project military hegemony abroad. We need to stop taking money from fellow Americans and giving it away in the form of foreign aid. We need to stop using it to foster proxy wars. We need to stop using it to confront the People's Republic of China, to stop using it to try to wear down the Russian army. These are all things that our government believes are top priority for us. And the truth is that they're not. The truth is that most Americans would not look at our foreign policy and say, boy, that sure has been successful. You know, there really aren't examples in our recent history. And by recent, I mean, you know, the last 80 years, there really are not examples of, gee, that cost us billions of dollars and thousands of lives, but it sure was a good idea anyway. No, there aren't examples of that. In the case of the Iraqi invasion and the Afghani invasion, the invasion by the American government into Iraq and Afghanistan, it wasn't billions of dollars. It was trillions of dollars that we lost. And it wasn't thousands of lives. We cost more than 1 million lives. These are things that the American public would not agree with. These do not align with our fundamental values. And so I believe that Americans are ready for a very clear, very clean, very crisp anti-war message, both, once again, based on principles and values and ethics, and on empirical grounds. It's just not true that the American government's foreign policy has been achieving things that Americans believe in our strategic interest. It's just not true. So I think Americans are ready for that message. That's number one.
Yeah. So let me like just give you one quick counter question to that, because we know what happened in Afghanistan. We know what happened in Iraq. We know that was bad. We don't know what's going to happen with like Taiwan and China, right? So people are saying, oh, well, we need to sell weapons to Taiwan and give them material support because they are of strategic importance because of chip manufacturing, and you know they're a democracy in that could be taken over by an authoritarian government. Isn't that a good enough reason to extend our foreign policy and to protect nations like that?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't. Like it doesn't even clear it doesn't clear the threshold of credibility. Number one, why is it that Taiwan is so important to our supply chain? Why is that? Why is that?
I can answer that.
Because we have made the mistake for 50 years of accidentally telling the world that we would back up Taiwan. So we've created a self-fulfilling prophecy. We need to send the signal that if you want to invest in chip manufacturing in a place where the US government, where the Department of Defense would back you up, come hell or high water, would go to war for you, maybe I could suggest a place like Rochester, which is a place where the Defense Department should go to war to protect you.
I'd like
not
to think
Taiwan.
So.
We need to unwind that. And it would take years to unwind it. But the Chinese, the People's Republic of China, is willing to wait years. And that's what people don't understand, is that Washington plays a short game. Beijing does not. If you were to send this signal to Beijing, you can have your cake and eat it too. You just need to give us time to unwind. They would be patient. They do want to repatriate Taiwan, no question about it. But they don't need to do it, by next spring. They want to do it eventually. And so that they absolutely would be patient. And it's just an example. Hong Kong. And the fact that it's a democracy, I appreciate that. It saddens me, the possibility of losing, a democratically elected government. I think that sucks. But just because I think it sucks doesn't mean that I should take everyone's money around the United States and use it to go to war over. Those are two different things.
I'm with you. I think we take a look at our fiscal policy in the United States, and it doesn't look sane to me. Now, we have something in common in that I studied economics when I went to college. You're an economist. What I see and the way that it's playing out, it looks like it's going to be a disaster, Mike. So economically, I want to steer you in a direction for your second point. Economically, this looks like a disaster. We're on a crash course, a collision course with
reality.
The end of something. Yeah.
We're on a collision course with reality. And that would be the second thing that I would flag. The federal government of the United States is going to collapse before the middle of this century, full stop. Unless we do something profound in terms of changing its course. And by the way, there's no reason to believe that a Republican politician or Democratic politician is going to do a damn thing to change that course. Unless we fundamentally change the direction of our federal government, it will not make it past the middle of the century. Full stop. Can't. And I say that not, because I can see the future. It's because I can do arithmetic. It's just not going to happen. And the problem is not that you would miss it or that I would miss it. This is not an organization that adds value to our lives. The problem is that a crash in the debt market would bring down the US dollar, and that would plunge the world into a deep depression that would be very difficult out of which to climb in anything less than decades if the US dollar were to collapse. That's the problem. We need competition among currencies. We need to replace the Federal Reserve System with something that's not quite as stupid. We need to shore up the dollar and make it stronger and allow other currencies to compete with it. And we need to stop the federal government from spending so much money. We need to cap spending. Because as much as libertarians say taxation is theft, about which we're exactly right, it needs to be said all government spending is theft, not just the piece that's financed by taxation.
Well, I mean, like, put a number on it then. Like, what do we? Can you get us down to where the federal government should be spending? Like, what does that look like? What's the future? If you're elected president, and maybe some libertarians get elected to Congress, we can actually change something. What does that look like from a fiscal policy perspective?
We need to cap spending at less than what current revenue is. You can't let revenue increase. You can't increase taxation, right? You need to stop allowing the Fed to create as much money as it wants. And you need to stop issuing debt, okay? Once you shut down growth in all three of those, you need to cap spending at about 95% of what the revenue is that's coming. That's something like a 10% cut right away in the first moment, and bring it down by several percentage points a year until it's a fraction of what it is now. And it sounds draconian, But if you don't do that, it's going to collapse. Okay. So you can't tell me it's too draconian. Anything less than that is going to lead to an absolute collapse. So pick your poison. The reason I like a cap on overall spending is it gets politicians out of the box of having to pick which programs to cut back. Just cap the whole thing. And then to the extent to which it bumps up against this cap, all programs take a haircut. Politicians don't have to choose which one.
The problem with that, Mike, I'm with you. I see the same problems that you do. But the problem with that is the metrics that we use right now to communicate growth in the economy is GDP. The instant you cut spending to below taxation, GDP is going to contract and people are going to freak out about that. How do we sell that to them? That leaving wealth in the hands of the middle class is going to be an economic engine. How do we sell that to them?
You have to sell it to them by reminding them that when the government spends your money, you're not getting any value out of it. So cutting back on government spending will necessarily slightly cut back overall GDP, but that dislocation is going to be made up. Every time you switch a job from being a government job to a private sector job, the entire nation gets wealthier. And we need to remind people of that the government is not doing things with your money that are in your interest. And so, yeah, there might be a little bit of dislocation. You're right. I'm sorry. The department, the SEC, the Treasury Department, the Justice Department might lose some attorneys who are going to be out there looking for work. And you can feel sorry for them if you want. Boo-hoo. But the truth is they're going to have to find something productive to do. And we're all going to be better off for it, even if there's a moment of dislocation. And I hasten to add, a moment of dislocation now among federal employees is a small price to pay for a major depression in the middle of the century.
Well, to prevent a major depression.
To prevent it. That's exactly right.
And I think it's going to be major. I agree with you.
Absolutely. It's terrifying and people don't know that it's coming. And it's a shame. The government is lying to us.
And the longer we take to solve the problem, the worse it's going to be. And you see what's happening in like Argentina, right? Like it is tough. It is draconian.
And you don't want to get all that deep before you have the guts to elect the next Javier Milei. We have an opportunity now to stop the duopoly in charge of our government. We should take the opportunity in 2024 and not wait another 24 years.
Absolutely. Well, we've now gone about 8 minutes over. It is fine. I will creatively edit the rest of the show so we can make sure we make this work. But I didn't want to cut you off because I offered you 2 issues. Any other things that we'll give you another minute to make your pitch to voters in the Western New York region.
Oh, well, look, if you're in New York State, you're in the same frame of mind that I am. I've spent many, many years in New York State, and I love you all. I don't understand why the radio station has named itself after Yves Saint Laurent. I've been to Rochester many times. I love Rochester. I made a lot of friends at RIT. I went to RPI, and I was in Buffalo and Syracuse recently. So I got a lot of friends out there and in Poughkeepsie. So I look forward to getting back and being with you. In the meantime, check out our website. You can check out MikeTerMaat.com, which is hard to spell because Termaat is 2 A's. But I would encourage everyone to check out goldnewdeal.org. Gold New Deal is all about a new relationship between us and the government that we will tolerate. So check out goldnewdeal.org. My contact information is there. Reach out. Let me know what you think.
All right. Right on.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
That's Mike ter Maat, who has joined us here. He is running again for the Libertarian nomination for president. Mike, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. It's so much fun to be with you. I look forward to it next time. Hey, Rochester.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Take care.
All right. We'll be back here on WYSL in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon.
All right.
He bounced.
He bounced. He didn't want to have any more conversation.
He's like, all right, man, I'm out.
Yeah.
It's all good. No, it's good. Interesting interview. It's
he was passionate. I like that. His take on economics is good. There's some salesmanship in there. I like salesmanship.
Yeah, no, I mean it's part of it. It's a matter of like as we kind of talk about, communicating that message too is important. And I think some good things that Mike did is that, focusing on the war on drugs is like it's less about like screw the state. It is about like the people who are impacted by the war on drugs. It's the consequences of it, right? It's the failed policy and the broken lives that have resulted from bad policy that, at my most generous is like well-intentioned but misguided policy, and at worst is cold, indifferent, and cruel policy.
But painted like it's fluffy bunnies with cute little ears and a fresh pink nose. Like it's just they put names on things.
Well, that's how a lot of stuff is. Like it makes it seem like, hey, we're trying to help these people who are addicted to drugs. Do you want people to be, addicted to like these different substances? And well, no, of course not. But like the way you're going about it isn't helpful. It is actively harming people. It is breaking lives instead of like treating it as a medical issue and getting people the help that they need.
We got a comment from Twitter, one of our worst comments ever. I'm not even sure I want to say it on the air, but he's like, oh, one of my friends that is trying to start his own political party, which I think is like, okay, good luck with that. It doesn't really,
cool, man.
He's like, how does the boot taste? And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got, Tim, you have to be kidding me. That's all I want to say. You've got to be kidding me.
It's the boot taste because he's a former police officer.
I don't know if that's what it was yet. He'll give me some more feedback.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, like I just assumed it was the police officer thing, which again, like I've said before, I have no inherent problem with police officers. I think that police serve a like useful function in society, like when done right. And it's interesting that apparently he had a career in which he was just going after, the folks who fit into his framework. But I think a lot of police officers are in tough positions where they recognize how some policy doesn't work, or they maybe start out saying like enforcing these policies through the war on drugs or on sex workers and other stuff, and start to recognize like how it's maybe not all that helpful. And they get in tough positions, but they're still doing their job. They're still required to do that. That's what I was trying to get at. I don't know that I fully got the answer out of that, other than like they should stand up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he had to play politician on us with that one a little bit. You know what I mean? Which is fine. I have friends that are police officers. When I hear some of the takes on policing as a whole, I agree with them. But when I hear some of the takes on like every individual police officer that comes, out there, I'm not as comfortable with that. I think that the Libertarian Party needs to find a common ground with the rest of the world on that issue, and I think Mike, I thought he did a good job with that.
Yeah, did that, and I didn't get into the Ukraine stuff. I could have pushed back harder on that.
Yeah. No, you did good with that.
Well, it's so like I don't know if I like fully expressed it, but like the tough part about like all these foreign policies, like Taiwan and Ukraine, is like they're unknowns. Like because there's always that like, well, what if the aggressive foreign policy works this time, right? Like,
sure,
does it ever work? No, not usually. But like, what if it works this time, or what if like like we can really be the ones to protect democracy and like make it in that unknown is like really alluring to people, particularly politicians who want to be in the seat of like, we're saving like the economic engine that is Taiwan. We're saving a democracy. We're saving democracy there. We're saving a democracy in Ukraine from like these imperialists in Russia. Like, we're the good guys in this situation. And like, how could we be so cruel as to like not jump in when we have the money and power to do so?
Yeah,
it's tempting.
Right, sure, and it is tempting, and I get it. But like the reality is that we only have the money through excess taxation and devaluation. That's where we get the money.
Debt, yeah.
Yeah, debt. And debt is devaluation. Like, it is going for us to pay the debt when our interest is now $1 trillion. Like, we are going to fail at that. The only way to solve that is through massive devaluation. That means that people that are poor and living off the system are going to be poorer, and the system is going to be tougher on them. That all of those things that if you care about poor people at all, if you care about the middle class at all, the only way out of this is devaluing the currency by a huge percentage. It's such a mess. And people don't even want to begin to think about it because they don't want to admit that reality. The gravy train has been awesome in a way, right? Like over the years, especially the last few years, propping up big businesses, propping up people's consumption, propping up now student debt, propping all of those things up is going to take from the value of our currency. It's obvious to me. It's already happening. People are actually feeling it now, Kevin, which is sometimes they're able to ignore it. But right now they go to the grocery store practically every time it's more money. Regardless of how they hide it, regardless of how they couch it in this basket of goods is only up 22% over the last 3 years. You take one look at that basket of goods and you just go, that's not what I buy. And all the things that I buy are up 40%. You know what I mean? Like, and it just keeps getting worse and quality's going down and packaging's getting smaller and they're gonna price control the situation, like
Elizabeth Warren is gonna fix it, Tim. Don't worry. She's got it. She's on it.
Oh my God. It's awful. It's just awful. The TikTok ban went through. I mean, it's just wild.
Yeah, I know.
The guy who wrote the TikTok ban put like $3 million into Facebook. Like
that's just smart investing. Like he knows.
He's just an astute investor, everybody.
Yeah,
he's
smart.
It's just amazing, Kevin. It's amazing. So we should get back to the regular show, our regularly scheduled program.
Yeah. So we're gonna shorten the segments a little bit so we can make it fit all into one show.
What do we got? Like a 7-minute segment? This next one.
I'm just gonna do 2 11-minute and 30-second segments.
All right, that's fine. That's perfect.
Yeah. So we'll just do a couple shorter ones. We're gonna make it work. It's all good. And so we'll go in and like 20 seconds. I never even did like the intro.
I know. That's going to be a tricky one. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to get it. Are you?
It's fine. I add in the intro music after. Like,
okay.
A little bit of behind the scenes.
You're so good at this stuff. I did one show. I sent it off to Bob. He's like, it's unusable. Like, I don't know what this is. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so bad at this. So then I'm like, it's like if I was teaching somebody how to use this stupid program, I know I could do it. So I went back through and I re-edited it, and at least it's out there now if we need one down the road. I think it was edited correctly the last time.
Yeah, no, that works. We got it, and we got an extra bonus episode. It's fine. So is that the one with Cody?
Cody's, I think I edited correctly. I feel bad because I think it was the one with Queeter.
It was with Queeter. That's right. That's with Queeter. All right. Well, let's head in 3, 2. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
And guys, they were getting used to me being the host, Kevin, and me being the guy not in the conspiracy chair. I just want to say I'm glad you're back. I'm glad to see you. Like, I was worried for you, brother. I was worried, like, not sick. You were pretty confident, so that gave me but I'm glad you're back. This show missed you. I missed you, and I'm glad to see you're on the mend, bro.
Yeah, no, I'm back. Like for those of you listening on WSL or online who don't know, I had heart surgery. I had it's called an atrial septal defect closure. I had a 2-centimeter hole in my heart that was not supposed to be there. So they patched that up. So I was in the ICU for a few days with that, and and then I ended up going back into the hospital briefly. Got a little AFib going on, but that should be good now, and I'm on the mend. I'm getting winded walking upstairs and whatnot, but like I'll be back to normal eventually.
Yeah, well, you get to be 58, and that's just like every day,
I'm young and take my health for granted right now, so like I don't like it.
I bet. Yeah, no, I get it, man. I'm just glad you're back. That's all.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be back, and glad you're able to do a few shows with Sean and Cody and Tom. So
yeah,
good stuff.
Good. It was good to have those guys on. They were great guests. Sean brought a lot of information. He went down the conspiracy theorist wormhole and the pop culture wormhole, which I love. And thankfully, you reel us back in from that because it feels dirty. When I'm talking about Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan, it feels dirty.
No, we end up pulling it back to policy. Like his show is like very much about that, which it's an entertaining show, and
it's great.
He comes with a lot of information. So Sean's a lot of fun. And eventually, folks, I'm going to get those up onto our podcast thing as well. I've got to just find the time to edit those. But yeah, so we will, speaking of which, we will stop talking about me eventually soon and start talking about some actual policy stuff, some stuff happening here in Monroe County and a handful of other issues as well. And so should we talk about the Monroe County district attorney situation? Did you?
I don't see how we don't, Kevin.
Yeah, Tim, did you see
making the news?
She is actually is kind of making a stir nationally.
Good for her.
And so Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Dorley was pulled over in a traffic stop. I think it was about a week ago, but the footage didn't come out until like Friday, the body cam footage. Yeah. And in full disclosure, like we actually, the Libertarian Party had endorsed her at one point in time for our ballot line. And the reason why I'll say is because I liked her at the time is she talked a lot about her initiatives for like deferral programs, like young people caught up in like bad activity, like how do we get them not in the criminal justice system, but find them in diversion programs to maybe like get their life back on track. And that's what she said the focus of her work was, right? And so and we had interviewed a Democratic candidate who mostly talked about like punishing people more. Oh, we're just punishing the wrong types of people, and we got to punch other people more. And I'm like, all right, that's not what we thought you were about. Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
And
what a surprise, though. Like, it's weird when authoritarianism grabs a hold of somebody. You know what I mean? And they're just like, this is the solution. And it's like, that doesn't sound like a solution. If you're not thinking it through, you're not examining human consequences. I thought our guest, ter Maat, was great on this stuff. But what the Monroe County DA did.
Yeah. So
she played the club card. She's like, I'm in the club.
Yeah, basically that's what she did, and that's why a lot of people are upset, because what happened was she was going allegedly she was going 55 and a 35, and a police officer attempted to pull her over in Webster, New York, and she didn't pull over. She just kept going, and she kept driving towards her home. She, on her way, called the chief of police and tried to explain that she wasn't a threat, and
right to the top.
Yeah, she's a DA, so she's working with all these police departments all the time. So she called her person and said she wasn't a threat and she wasn't going to pull over, and she had home. And then the police officer, of course, followed her home, lights on, sirens on, went there and was like, hey, this is a traffic stop. Like you need to stop and talk to me, right? Like you're being detained. Yeah. And the police officer, like, good for him, by the way, like who kept his cool the entire time, like in a tough situation, and must have at that point in time realized who he was pulling over, but stuck to what he was doing, because the law should be applied consistently, and I think that's fair and important. And sure. he tried to issue a speeding ticket, but she was very rude to him, and swore a couple times, tried to close the door, tried to walk into her house. And basically, she pulled the like, don't you know who I am card.
The old like, hey, I'm in the club with your bosses, buddy. Do you understand who I am? Man, oh man. Again, like you said, credit to that cop for not losing his mind. Like, she was basically, I don't know, if it was me, what would they do, Kevin? Let's be honest. If I behaved like that,
no, like any other person, like we would have been on the ground in cuffs. Right. And that's what like most people are saying. They're like, dude, if we acted like that, like we'd be in the dirt. Like that's like, you can't do that. And like, I don't think that's the right reaction for police officers to have for someone who's non-threatening, but like,
fair enough.
Because I don't think that should have happened to her either. But also, like, again, this is a person who's supposed to be like, in many ways, the top law enforcement officer of the county. And like, and again, she's working with police. She talks about how she respects police all the time. And here she is, like, disrespecting this guy who's just doing his job. But what she could have done is just pulled over. And what would have probably happened is a kind of normal, everyday, like small, like corruption he would have seen who it was and probably like she would have gotten off with a warning, right? Like,
right.
it's probably what would have happened. Like, oh, this is the DA. This is Sandra Dorley. She would have said she was having a bad day, apologized, and said, okay, no worries, you're getting off with a warning, right?
Yeah.
That's probably what would have happened. Instead, again, driving to her house, fleeing the police, it's, and then not cooperating afterwards. And that's what like drives me nuts about this. And I think what drives everyone nuts about this is just that, like, again, to try to exercise that privilege, the like, I've called your boss. I am this political authority. You cannot, like, do this to me. I'm the one who does these tickets anyway. Which is what she said. She's like, I'm the one who does these, and so like, and which she wouldn't, right? Like when it's her, she's not the one involved. It's her office still, people acting under her authority, but like someone else does it. And to try to exercise your privilege like that, to think that you are above the law, is abhorrent to people. It's fundamentally like anti-American to do that, right? Like, we're all supposed to be equal. We're all supposed to, be subject to the same laws and the same rules.
I mean, we're not. We're supposed to be, but
we're supposed to be. Yeah, right. Like, again, like you and I have talked about, and we recognize like all the ways in which we fall short of that ideal. But to see it put out so blatantly on camera is revolting to people.
Our friend Shelly out there in YouTube land says we would have been cuffed and stuffed for sure. Like, I think that's correct. I think that's the proper take. And I don't blame people for being mad about it. I really don't.
Yeah.
So what are they going to do? She going to lose her job? She going to get held accountable? How's this going to work out? She's,
So she a couple things happened after step one. She issued a press release, which kind of didn't really match up with the actual situation. And then she issued an apology video where she said basically she was learning about a medical situation with her husband and she was having a bad day. Which, okay, I understand. But here's the thing. Police deal with people when they're having the absolute worst day of their lives all the time, right?
Yeah.
And if they do something illegal while they're having the worst day of their life, for most people, it doesn't matter. You're still going to jail. You flee from the police because you think you're having a bad day. Doesn't matter. You're gonna go to jail for doing that. And she still isn't. Like, there's no way. Like, I'd say very close to zero chance that like she's going to face any like criminal consequences for this. Now, is she going to face political consequences for it? Maybe, right? So New York State has like a commission that the Governor Hochul is like looking into, or she has a commission ready for this type of thing, and will decide like if there's any action that should be taken against DAs like her who are brought before this commission. And so maybe something will come of that. I think, like, again, politically, like, people are going to remember this stuff. People are going to remember the way she tried to abuse her position to bully a police officer into letting her bad behavior slide, right? I think that's something voters are going to remember.
One would think, I'm just so jaded about like holding our elected officials accountable for anything that I just feel like she starts spending money now. Well, I mean, she starts ASPCA visits. She pets some puppies, does some
people might forget about it. And the thing is, like, the local GOP, they've come out and been like, we fully support her. She's given like 30 plus years of her life to like supporting law enforcement.
Yeah.
And putting bad people behind bars and fighting for justice in our community. And so like making a bunch of excuses for it. But again, I can't get behind it. Like it doesn't matter. Again, I told you, and I started out with this, like, I liked her. I like what she was trying to do within the confines of the DA system. There's some things I like what she was trying to do.
Sure.
I endorsed her. I put my name behind that.
Okay.
In addition to the parties. And
this
now,
is the thanks you get.
Yeah, no, right. That anyone has ever cared about that. But like, that's, it's just, it's not great to see. And I can't stand when politicians, I cannot support any politician. I hope she resigns.
Right.
It's just that type of abuse of power is is so fundamentally against what like our republic is supposed to be about that anyone who does it should go. That's where I am on it.
Maybe she'll resign, and then
Maybe
that
she will.
way, aren't they obligated to appoint a Republican if she resigns, or no? Is that not how that works?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Which is why the GOP is like kind of closing ranks.
Correct. It's an office that they actually hold in New York State, even though
the chances of them electing any more Republicans at the county level it's going to be tough for the next few years. The numbers just aren't looking good in Monroe County for Republicans. So
I hate to be this way, but they've done it to themselves. Like they've collaborated when they shouldn't have collaborated. They haven't drawn clean, bright lines about freedom and the necessity to further the goals of liberty ever. They participate in growing the government. Like they're supposed to be at least an opposition party. They are not.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, on that note, though, we have to head to break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We're going to be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. All right. I went over like 2 minutes again.
Did you really? Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. It's all right. It's terrible. This show is going to be a nightmare to edit.
Oh, good.
Sorry. I luckily I'm not working right now, so I have like some time during the day when I'm not resting.
Extra time.
That's all right. Thanks for the welcome back, Patricia.
Hi, Patricia. Did you see Mike ter Maat? I didn't see any comments from you. I thought maybe we get some questions from you for him. Shelly was out there though.
Yeah, no, we got a bunch of comments from Shelly.
Patricia Marie was out there earlier on. I didn't quite catch that one. She's pretty awesome. Giving us a shout out. Yeah, I haven't been on Facebook as much. Is it still at all entertaining?
Sometimes my Facebook today is filled with news of my college closing.
Oh yeah, no, we got to talk about that because we have a local private institution in Oneonta that the rumors are they're closing as well. And then they come out with, hey, we'll help out the College of St. Rose. We'll take all of their students. But everybody's like, they're closing too. This is a mess. Like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. No, we can talk about that. But we'll get to this comment from Jamie. Her arrogance was sickening. That's the Sandra Darley DA. I didn't know you were behind me. I called your boss. I prosecute this. And she didn't care that she was on camera. Yeah. So I didn't. I originally I wanted to have some like audio clips of that interaction, but I was like, okay, I've got to make sure I get this right and not make sure there's not like swear words in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's not. So again, it's not great. And I'll link the video of that to the show, so anyone who wants to check it out can see it. And Jamie said the DA needs to lose your job. Yeah,
just like anyone else and anybody else would. Like if I behaved like that and it reflected poorly on the company I work for, they would be like, you know what we're gonna do? Find something else for you to do, not with us. Good luck.
Yeah. Exactly. So, I'll post a link to the video if anyone wants to check it out.
I
yeah, if you actually
checking it out. She
yeah,
looked like
it's worth it. It's
crazy.
Yeah, no, it's a bit long, but yeah, no, she again having a bad day. I get it. You just
I had a bad day.
Yeah, but so the rest of us don't get a pass. If I got pulled over right now, which I can't actually drive at the moment, but if I got pulled over right now and I was like, no, I'm having a bad day because I just had surgery, they'd be like, I don't care.
Nope.
Yeah,
you're getting a ticket, and here's let's drag you in the dirt for your behavior too. Yeah,
basically. I mean, like, because we didn't get into this during the show. Like, there's situations. What kills me about particularly like my Republican friends in this area is like there's a situation where I think it was in Webster too, where like there's like a 13-year-old kid like screwing around, like doing like stupid destructive stuff in like a Walmart, and this police officer kneed this kid in the head and then started just like wailing on him while 2 other police officers were already sitting on this 13-year-old, just wailing on him. I
saw him tase a 9-year-old because she was like upset that her parents were fighting and she wouldn't calm down. Like it was wild.
Yeah. And again, like this is like obviously those cops acted poorly, but like the specific attitude that kills me is people are like, well, that 13-year-old shouldn't have been acting like a jerk. If he had respected police, then that wouldn't have happened.
They don't get to convict a kid on the spot and start meting out punishment. That's not how that works. Okay. That is not how that works. They have an obligation to restrain them and take them in, and that's it, you know?
Yeah. That's it. And like it was just excessive, and people were just like, oh well, that kid deserved it because like he was running away from the police, or you know, it wasn't complying with orders. What was your DA doing right there?
Right.
Did she deserve to be tased or like get kneed in the head? No, she didn't. But neither did those children.
Right. Okay, well, we've gone full circle, Kevin.
I know. Okay, so we got like 10 minutes of showtime left. We'll talk briefly about the that poor kid who just yelled, "I'm the DA."
Jamie, that's a good one. Well played. Yeah, and if the 13-year-old was at a hospital, nurses would not have tased them. Correct, right? Like they sometimes need treatment. That's a reality.
Yeah, that's true. So, all right, we'll briefly talk about the Trump presidential immunity thing.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Related. Yeah, and then maybe we'll talk about the college thing after.
All right.
So we'll go in 10 seconds. Fine. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson here today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I'm here, Kevin. I'm here. And I'm going to be defending my man Trump in this segment, period.
Of course you are. So let's talk about the presidential immunity thing, right? Like just because it feels sort of related to our last segment where we're talking about Monroe County DA Sandra Dorley and politicians kind of acting like they are above the law, right? And so the news around Trump was that his defense team was making the argument that essentially presidents had full immunity, that any actions that they take during their tenure as president are, you know, automatically assumed to be legal, essentially. So the simplified version of that. And they have immunity from prosecution, and that's the defense is Donald Trump's team is making in this particular case, right? So, Tim, what you're gonna defend this? You think that president should be able to do whatever they want?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's hard because here's the reality that what we're seeing with Trump looks like lawfare, and had he been granted some sort of immunity from this kind of prosecution, he'd be able to campaign more effectively, Kevin. He's being prevented from going out on the road and campaigning. And there is a point in here that while I'm making kind of obnoxious snide jokes, that there is a certain level of vindictiveness in our society, this cyclical authoritarianism. And so immunity for a presidential thing, it's weird for me to say, but there's a danger here in what we're seeing, in that they're quashing his free speech. They're going after him on a lot of it. Looks like trumped up technicalities, and that if he had a blanket immunity type thing, they would be unable to do this. They would be unable to election interfere. I don't know, man. I'm trying.
Yeah, I know you're trying to make the argument. Because eventually, what they said essentially is like, while someone is president, that the only meaningful way to like hold them accountable for breaking the law is impeachment, right? That outside of impeachment, that there's no way of doing that, and that includes actions taken as president that are then prosecuted after the fact, right? Which is kind of what they're going after here, right? So it's like you took an action as president that was illegal, and we, as the Justice Department or whatever other law enforcement entity, could prosecute you for your illegal action. So in this case, right, like bribe or straight up stab someone in the neck in like the Oval Office, like if the Senate is just like, we don't feel like impeaching them, like they're making the argument there's nothing the Justice Department or anyone else could be able to do to hold a president accountable for illegal, corrupt, possibly unknown actions taken as president. And I'm giving some pretty extreme examples, but like the corruption thing is like I think a pretty plausible example, right? Like there could be like we find out that Joe Biden like really was like on the take from whoever, right?
Well, he is really on the take.
Right?
It's just he does it legally, okay? Does it within the framework of the laws that they've constructed to enrich themselves, okay? So he's definitely on the take. It's just legal. That's all.
Right. So I mean, well, right. Let's say like it was illegal, right? Like Joe Biden has taken illegal bribes from China, hypothetically, right? And Donald Trump wins this election. Could the Justice Department go after him for these types of things?
Under Donald Trump's argument, the answer would be no. Like we would not be able to prosecute Joe Biden or Donald Trump or any of the. So it would only ensure the most corrupt, biggest liar gets to be president forever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And so my take on this is that that's a bad idea. That we should allow presidents after the fact to be held accountable for any crimes they commit in office. Again, regardless of whether or not the accusations against Donald Trump are valid or not, like I think this is a good and legitimate power of government to be able to go after former office holders for any actual crimes they've committed in office, right? And if that person happens to be running for office again, like that doesn't matter to me, you know, sorry, is it making Trump's life more difficult? Like, yeah, but like also if he really did commit crimes, or again, like setting aside the merits of these individual ones, but if he really did commit crimes, then yeah, that too bad, so sad. Like you got to face accountability and go to trial for your stuff. And if that makes your campaigning life harder, well,
too bad,
whatever.
right?
Like,
too bad, so sad.
Too bad.
Yeah,
I don't care. I don't feel that sympathetic. You know, like if who's that senator from New Jersey? Bob Menendez.
Bob Menendez.
Right.
He's
right?
fine.
Like, if he's facing trial during his election, like, are you going to shed any tears over that? Like
me, no. And John Fetterman won't either, which he's pretty awesome. Like honestly, Fetterman may be my new hero, bro. Like he's okay.
He is kind of fun, but
all over that guy. So look, it gets confusing because there is this whole issue of in Nixon versus Fitzgerald in 1982. It was ruled at the Supreme Court level that the president has absolute immunity from civil damages in actions regarding conduct within the outer perimeter of their duties. So Trump is trying to extrapolate that into short form absolute immunity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, basically, it's going from qualified immunity to absolute immunity, right? That's
right.
Because like presidents in some sense do have a level of qualified immunity, right? But right or wrong, they do. If they're doing something that's if you're doing something that's within the bounds of the legal scope of their job, which if, as a president, like does actually include killing people, then they're immune from that. Like they can't be held civilly accountable for doing something that is within the legal scope of what they are supposed to and allowed to do.
Correct.
So,
so that was what the ruling for the in the Nixon case was, right? Then there was the Clinton versus Jones in 1997. The court ruled against temporary immunity for sitting presidents from suits arising from pre-presidential conduct. And so the Stormy Daniels case, he wouldn't get out of that anyway, right? Like he wasn't president then. Like it would still be something they could argue over in court.
Yeah. And so really like this specific case is, you know, something he did in office that is allegedly outside of the scope of the office and therefore not protected by his like qualified immunity should he be immune from those actions. And and then again, they are making the political argument that you made too, that this is functionally election interference, that the Biden Justice Department is bringing these not for the sake of seeking actual justice, but for the sake of making it difficult for his opponents to win.
It certainly on some level, and not even on some level, a lot of it appears like that, to me, because they get in the weeds with their discussion. They made charges that were abstract, and then they are trying to bring it home at a time when I think it's inappropriate. They could have brought this home at January 7th. They could have brought this home, 2020, right? Like they could have went after him then and dealt with this then, and either lost or won their cases then. And arguably then the claims were they didn't have enough evidence to prosecute him, and now they've found the evidence over time. I don't buy that argument. That argument is always something that's non-persuasive to me. Finding evidence that these lawyers that are making $450 an hour aren't incentivized to go find evidence when they can charge their $450 an hour. Like, I'm not persuaded by that. Does that make sense?
No, I mean, it does make sense. It's, again, this is tough because there's a lot of things where I think there really is something there, but also the system is so consistently abused and used in the way that you're describing that it's hard to disentangle that from both what I see as actual wrongdoing and like my political inclinations as well. So
sure,
I'm trying to be a bit objective, but
no, look, I understand it. I understand some of the arguments about, oh my God, look how much trouble he is in with all these courts. And then I try to examine the issues that are being presented in the courts, and I'm like,
no. Like I think some are legit, some are very silly. Like the New York ones, like, oh man, the New York ones are so dumb. But it just total reach. But we can't jump into that too much because we are out of time for the show.
Oh, man.
All right. Well, thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution on WYSL. Appreciate y'all being here. Have a great night, folks. Take care. All right. So I hopefully got the timing right for all those. We'll see.
I'm sure it's going to be just fine. And look, Trump's going to provide us with a plethora of material over the next few months. But Slate.com is coming out with an analysis of the arguments at the Supreme Court about the immunity. And they feel as though the arguments, the way they were presented and argued, will stack up in his favor.
I think so. I haven't read the Slate one yet.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's complicated. And of course, because there's so many different charges against him in different places, they have to jump. They have a limited amount of time to present their story. So they kind of jump all over the place. But I'll post a link to it. I perused it. It's worth a quick read.
All right, yeah, I'll check it out. Why not?
Right here. But we don't have to talk. Like, other people are making money off of talking about Trump. We don't have to talk about Trump.
No, I haven't talked about the whole time. I just thought it was like kind of related.
Yeah. It is the arrogance of our elected officials, right? Like Sheldon Silver and Joe Bruno, both of those guys made bank, did things that were unethical in office that they never got prosecuted for, that eventually, after they were done in office, they did, in fact, get prosecuted, right? Like, being in office kept them immune from those things. They were doing those things while they were in office. The evidence was there. Why didn't they prosecute them while they were in office? They have fear of repercussion. What is that? Like, is that what it is? I don't know. It made me very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It was absolutely. And people were like, I called into a radio show, and the guy's like, so what do you think? I'm like, Joe Bruno is absolutely guilty, and he will absolutely not get convicted, or something like that. Like, I don't know. I made some random anti-government rant.
Right.
So look, we've talked about it a couple times. Private institutions in New York State are losing the battle. They're going away. Private
small colleges. I mean, it's not even just New York State. It's kind of all over the country, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like dozens of them closed in 2023. And the latest one is Wells College, which hurts because I'm a Wells College alum. I graduated there in 2012. And yeah, no. And I only graduated there. I also served as a trustee for 2 years. So I got to kind of see it on the inside. And unfortunately, after cobbling together a whole bunch of stuff to stay open for decades,
Yeah.
they closed down because they were all women's college, and then they
To stay alive, they decided
co-ed.
you made a
which is
good decision there, young man.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's how I was able to go to the college. We went co-ed in 2005, and because they were desperate, and that was their Hail Mary then. And then in 2013 they're in 2012, 2013 they're kind of in rough shape too, and they brought in a new interim president. They made a bunch of capital improvements, brought in some new majors, kind of seemed to work for a bit, and this time they closed. But again, they're unfortunately in good company. There's other schools like Casanova, Medaille, trying to think of, there's a handful of others in New York State that
King's
closed.
College.
King's College, yep.
I remember we had that stuff pulled up. Several trade schools type things have also gone by the wayside. I feel like a part of it, and how I'm blaming the government, is that they have unlimited funds to outcompete these small private universities. Like when I look at SUNY Binghamton, Kevin, it's 3 times bigger than when I went there, right? Like, so my degree is actually one of the things gaining value in my life. I went to SUNY Binghamton, and now it's, like I said, 3 times the size. It's all D1 and everything. It's doing D1 sports. It made it to the NCAA tournament. Like, it has D1 wrestling. It is the premier institution in Central New York.
No, Binghamton, I'd call that Southern tier.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I didn't want to say Southern tier because I don't live in this Southern tier. Arguably, I use Central New York because it makes me feel closer to it. But whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like Central New York schools be like Syracuse University, all the schools in that area. Now, Utica University, I think they changed their name.
Yeah, that's why I want Binghamton to be held up above them. That's why I said Central New York. Do you see what I'm saying? That was the goal there. But
that was the goal.
You called me out on it. Fair enough.
Yeah, but like you're right though. Like the state schools though, for instance, are eligible for the Excelsior program, which if you agree to stay in New York State, you can get your tuition covered. That's a huge incentive for people to go to state schools, and they were already subsidized to begin with. Like the college itself, like at Wells College, they blamed like a couple issues. They said like the global pandemic, shrinking pool of undergraduate students nationwide, inflationary pressures, and overall negative sentiment towards higher education. Now I'm quoting from like their like closing release. That's what they blamed for this. I mean, what do you think of those?
I do buy into the pandemic conditions set up by New York State in New York State for New York State universities. I know that people were very unhappy. I know I had family members.
Can you imagine paying for like a residential college experience and having to sit in your dorm room, not interacting with anybody for weeks and weeks?
Yeah, no, that some of the classes they didn't even get to go to the school. They had to stay at their house and take their university, and the price was the same. Like, so, and then there was the occasional person that were uncomfortable with the authoritarian COVID measures when other schools were loosening up their access in other states and being less rigorous about COVID protocols. And they're like, oh, my kid can go to another state. I've got the money saved. I'm out there. That's it, So
That's what a lot of
They
people
shot
did.
themselves in the foot.
Just go to
And look,
Florida. Go
yeah,
to Florida school.
yeah, go to a Florida school. Go to like other states, smaller states we don't even think of were less rigorous about the
Yeah.
COVID restrictions. And New York was very authoritarian, and it cost them. And but look, it cost them their private universities. So the state's like, cool, like
Right.
cool. It's costing us private universities. Cool. We'll just
Small
have more
price to
business
pay.
eventually for state schools.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah,
but in the other stuff like shrinking pool of undergraduate students nationwide and overall negative sentiment towards higher education, like maybe I don't know.
maybe I don't. I think that
I don't know if I fully buy those, but like I mean like I get where you could pick that up from like discussions about that. Um because people are skeptical of higher education. I've talked about my skepticism towards like it isn't always the right thing for people to do to jump right into a 4-year school, right? Like it's
sure.
sometimes it's like if you're not really sure, maybe going to school can be great for you, or if you're the type of person who's like not going to take your academics seriously, you're just going to screw around. It's going to take you 6 years to finish a 4-year degree that's not going to be super valuable to begin with. Yeah, it's not always the right thing for everybody.
No. Look, I'll be honest, like, I'm very proud of my Binghamton University education, but I I think that overall, my life would have been less stressful had I not gone to college because I've always even when I was going to college, Kevin, and I didn't necessarily have to, but I worked all the time. Like, I am a guy that likes to get up and move around. Like, university did not facilitate that. Like, I've I don't even know if it's high energy, it's just ADHD something, right? Like, it's just, like, not for me? So but I did it. I got it done. Took a
Yeah.
while. I I kinda, like, went and opened a bar halfway through, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go open a bar for you, don't worry about it." And then I'm like, "Damn, I'm so close to get." Well, wasn't halfway through, it was, like, my senior year of college. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm out of here," and I moved to Syracuse, and I started working in a bar, right? And I'm like, Alright, I'm working in this bar all the time," and then I'm like, alright, then I got a job in another bar, and then I'm like, "You know what? I should probably go back and get my degree." I had, like, 125 credits, right? That was enough for a
Close.
degree. They just weren't in the right spaces, so I had to
Right.
go back and take, like, 5 classes, and I'm like, "Psych, got my degree." Just the way things
Well,
go
you
for this
have it,
guy.
right?
Yeah,
But your situation, a lot of people will do that though, and they just won't finish it, right?
yeah,
Like they'll just be like, okay, I have all these credits, I've taken some college, and then it just kind of hangs out there,
yeah,
and then they're in a lot of debt without having the degree. That's the folks I'm talking about. And again, I've
yeah,
seen that happen to people I care about. It's they spend a bunch of money thinking that college is right for them. Turns out it really wasn't right for them, and but they kind of got pushed into it, and then they have a bunch of debt and nothing to show for it. That
yeah.
stinks.
I mean, it was a nice escape from my local community for a little while, for sure. And I did okay. Obviously, like, had anything excited me, not obviously, but had something excited me, like, sure, I'm knowledgeable in economics, right? I can speak to economics, but had something excited me or caught my attention while I was there, perhaps I would have been like, a rocket scientist, for example. But like it just didn't really
There you
land
go.
with me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But I mean, and then getting out of your home is important too. Like, here's the thing: like, college ends up being this proxy for like growing up for a bunch of people. Because like I said, I saw it,
Sure.
especially as an RA. Like, a bunch of these kids, like, they get in and they have never been away from home for like more than a few days. Some of them, like, and I'm not joking. Like,
Right.
they this is their opportunity to get out on their own, make friends without their parents, like learn how to do laundry, like
Awesome.
do like training wheels adulting, right? You still
Yeah.
got your meals prepped for you,
Yeah.
like in most cases, but
Yeah,
it's
well, you
training
just gotta
wheels adulting.
walk to the dining hall, right? Like, there you
Yeah,
go. Yeah, I had
exactly.
actually left home when I was 16. I was still in high school, and I'm like, "See you later, suckers. You all suck. I'm out of here. You're a bunch of crazy lunatics." And then I went back for a short period of time, and then I still managed to get myself into SUNY Beta. Like, my grades in high school were still good enough, even though I had this tumultuous like lifestyle when I was 15, 16. It was wild.
Yeah,
Wouldn't change it for the world, though.
Right on.
Yeah.
Shelly says, I was an exchange student in Mexico, and they tried to keep me from graduating because they couldn't read my transcripts to first school board and asked why Spanish teachers couldn't translate. Yikes.
That's
Big
pretty
yikes.
funny. Yeah. Big yikes. Got him. Oh my God.
Oh no.
All right, brother. Did you catch the Uncle Bozy thing? Your president?
What did he do?
Oh my God. He's just speaking extemporaneously and off the cuff after a press conference, and he said something about his Uncle Bosley.
Oh, wait, the cannibal thing?
The cannibal thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I did see that.
Oh my God, he's lost it, man. And for God's sakes, like to work in that White House and to try to come up with a defense of those things. Karine Jean-Pierre was like, "Hey, Steve Ducey's kid, don't make a joke about this. This isn't funny. He just made a mistake." And it's like,
that's pretty weird. He makes weird stuff up all the time.
That's what Ducey said. He's just like, okay. Should we be concerned that he has the nuclear button? You know, like that's where I would have went. I don't remember exactly where he went, but the defense was he made a mistake. You shouldn't be making a joke out of it. And it's like, it is a freaking joke, man. This is hilarious. This guy is a joker, has no business being in the president. He has no business being that close to power.
So we got a guy who's making up stories about his uncle being eaten by cannibals, and another guy who's fallen asleep in court. Sleepy Trump. Sleepy
Trump.
Biden.
Sleepy Trump. It's like who sleeps with what Playboy bunnies and porn stars. Like that's guys, that's where we're at in America. We got a guy that makes up stories, and then we got a guy that sleeps with porn stars and Playboy bunnies. Like,
actually, on a related note, did you see like the GOP Twitter who was trying to like criticize Biden because he admitted in the 70s, like when he was single, like women would send him like nude pictures all the time. See that? And like people are like retweeting it, like, why are you making Biden sound awesome? Like,
which is that Twitter is kind of awesome like that. People will jump on stuff like that, like, all right, I didn't really like this guy, but now you're kind of convincing me, you know?
Yeah, it's like it wasn't like he was soliciting them. It's like they were just sending them to him. Like, what? Like, okay, he was a good-looking single guy in the 70s, you know? Like, what?
Yeah, or he made that up. Like, that's the thing, you know? Like,
maybe he could have made that up. He's been making up stories like his entire life, so like, could be.
He's an epic storyteller, Kevin. Wonderful. Yeah. He's story told his way right to the presidents of the United States. Like, it's amazing.
Sure did. That's persistence pays off. That's what I think we can learn here.
Even when he got caught for like plagiarizing and lying about his success in school and all of those things, and he
never
dropped
gave up
out
on his dream.
He never gave up, and he just kept hanging in there. God bless that guy and his perseverance. God bless him. Oh my God. Just wild. It's wild, Kevin. It's wild, the situation that we're in. So, like a guy like Mike ter Maat could be an effective, any libertarian could be an effective counter to what we're seeing as the degradation of society. It just
Mike ter Maat can string a couple coherent sentences together. So like now he's a step above either of those two.
Honestly, he could take either one of them in a fight too. Like, let's be honest, he would wreck them both. And like, that's important, you know? He'd destroy those guys physically.
That's important too.
I think so. Clowns to the left, jokers to the right.
Yeah.
Here we are. We're the real middle, Kevin.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Stuck in the middle. All right. On that note, though, think about calling it a night.
Yeah, you got a little bit of work to do. Get this thing.
Yeah, to somehow edit this. We'll see.
Man. Well, good luck, brother. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night, folks. Thanks for listening. Appreciate y'all.
Take care.